Hey guys, DC Network here, coming at you with another video. So today is the start of a new decade, and I thought it would be fun to look back at the last 10 years of Cartoon Network to see what has changed, if it was for the better or for the worse. So Cartoon Network in 2010 was a time where a lot of people were down about the network, to be honest with you. A lot of people thought that the network was getting stale and a lot of things needed to change. Obviously, Stu Snyder was the president at the time, and people were very angry at him for bringing live action shows to the network. But in 2010, we actually got a pretty good amount of shows greenlit that honestly are fan favorites. We had the premiere of Adventure Time, Ben 10 Ultimate Alien, Generator Rex, Regular Show, and Symbionic Titan. In addition to this, we also had Robottonomy, but that show didn't last too long, unfortunately, and I never actually saw it, so I don't remember too much about that. Then, throughout the decade, as it progressed, 2011 we had The Amazing World of Gumball, 2012 we had Ben 10 Omniverse, and those two are obviously fan favorites, but Ben 10 Omniverse is kind of a mixed reception. It depends on who you talk to. Like, I think it was good, but it was definitely the worst Ben 10 in my opinion out of the original four. Is my least favorite. And Gumball obviously was a huge success. But then you get to 2014, and 2014 something big happened. Stu Snyder got fired as the president of Cartoon Network, and incoming president, everyone was excited. They're like, oh yeah, Stu Snyder's gone. He was the worst president of Cartoon Network. Little did they know we would be getting Christina Miller as the president of Cartoon Network. I spoke about this countless number of times. You guys know how I feel about the whole network as a whole right now, but she took over in 2014. And I forgot to mention actually in 2013 as well, Steven Universe premiered. Obviously, that's a fan favorite. Now in 2014, we had Clarence premiere. That show, a lot of people liked it. And then later on the decade, we had the obviously unfortunate reboots of the Powerpuff Girls and Ben 10, in addition to some other shows which are a mixed bag in my opinion. We have some fan favorites in there, but at the same time, there are some shows that I'm not really a big fan of. But something I want to mention before I go further into this decade is around this time, 2015, maybe 2016. I don't remember the exact time frame. Actually, I believe it's closer to the end of 2015 or middle of 2016. Cartoon Network lost a major asset that they had had for over 15 years. What I'm talking about is Pokemon. They lost the Pokemon series when Sun and Moon was starting to release. That was in 2016. I don't know exactly when the X and Y anime ended, but that was the last Pokemon series to air on Cartoon Network. And this just, to me, in my opinion at least, this just tells us a lot about the state of the network. For a company, for an asset to have left you after more than 15 years on your network, that's just saying something's off. In addition to this, they lost other series to Disney XD, which Pokemon went to. They lost Pokemon, like I said. They lost Beyblade, I know. And there are a few others as well that aren't exactly coming to mind right now. I know Yokai Watch premiered on Disney XD. Presumably, if Cartoon Network still had Pokemon and Beyblade, I would have assumed that Yokai Watch would also be on Cartoon Network. But all in all, they just lost basically all the animes aimed towards a younger audience. And like I said, this just tells you a lot was going on at the network at the time that wasn't good. We also, going into later on in the decade, we had the revival of Toonami. Actually, that was, I believe, around 2012, maybe 2013, I want to say. And we had a bunch of other shows greenlit at the network, such as currently we have in 2019 Steven Universe Future, Infinity Train, Victor and Valentino, some to mention a few. Last year we had Kirk at the Creek, Summer Camp Island, Apple and Onion, and then, as I said before, we had the unfortunate reboots in 2016. So, all in all, was this decade a good one for Cartoon Network or not really? For me, I think that the decade started off relatively strong. I think the strongest point of Cartoon Network was probably the mid 2000s, but the beginning of the decade wasn't bad. I remember that I used to watch Cartoon Network pretty much every single day, and there was a good variety of shows on the network, whether I be watching reruns of Adventure Time, of Regular Show, the Looney Tunes show, Scooby Doo Mystery Incorporated. There was a lot to see. You fast forward 5, 6 years down the line in 2015, 2016, you turn on the network, all you're seeing is Teen Titans Go. Yeah, it's gotten better since then, but the schedule, it's better than it was a few years ago, but it's still not great. I mean, all that's on is Gumball, Teen Titans Go, and I see some reruns of Victor Valentino, but like, where's the reruns of the older series that we all loved when we were growing up? Now, going into the new decade, obviously Christina Miller has been fired. She was fired earlier this year, as I'm sure pretty much all of you know, and we don't know what's going to happen going forward. Like I said, beginning of the decade, I feel like we started out at a strong point of Cartoon Network. It's not the strongest that it ever was, but it was doing well. I think that they had some good programs on, and I think that majority of the new series that were coming out went on to be fan favorites. Then you fast forward, like I said, 5, 6 years down the line, and the network just it basically fell off a cliff. It went from being the top network for kids to, I don't know, Disney XD is certainly better at the point 2015, 2016. I don't know about Nick. I wasn't really watching too much Nick back then. But right now, Cartoon Network is kind of at a point of transition. Like I said, we don't know who the new president's going to be. We don't know what they're going to do. But one thing before I wrap this all up that I forgot to mention is that in this decade, after Ben 10 Omniverse concluded in 2014, we saw the end of action shows on Cartoon Network. And Cartoon Network, let me remind you, that was pretty much their bread and butter for a good amount of time. We had Ben 10, the original Ben 10, it's just like Cartoon Network made, I think, $4 billion in toy sales for Ben 10. You know how much money they made on Ben 10? That caused them to greenlit shows like The Secret Saturdays, like Generator Rex. That caused Batman Brave and the Bold to come to the network. That caused that whole... I remember there used to be Action Friday nights. I forgot exactly what the block was called, but it was like Action, Action, Action or something. And they would have it every Friday night. They would have all these action shows on. It caused all these different superhero shows to come to the network. And then all of a sudden, we hit the midpoint of the decade, and we just see the absolute opposite. Not one action show on the network. Which is just very strange to see. How do you go from action shows being your bread and butter to being non-existent on your channel? And, I'm not going to put all the blame on Christina Miller, although she basically, is a huge part of this, why there aren't action shows on Cartoon Network, because what do you see? 2014, Stu Snyder leaves, that's when Ben 10 Omniverse is concluding, and then after that, Christina Miller comes in, no action shows. So yes, a huge part of that is her fault. But at the same time, if you look around the industry right now, there's pretty much no action shows in animation at all. This decade saw the basically disappearance of all action shows from any animated network, which is just very strange to me. I really don't understand why. A lot of people, I've talked about this before, I don't want to go on too much about this, but a lot of people have said, oh, it's because, action shows aren't kid friendly. And I'm like, they are kid friendly. You don't have to be violent and gory and all this. You can have a kid friendly action show like the original Ben 10, Ben 10 Alien Force, Ultimate Alien, Omniverse. Those are all kid friendly. There's nothing wrong with those. But yet, for some reason, all these animation companies are afraid to make action shows in the current day. Anyways, that is my opinion and a overview of the past 10 years at Cartoon Network. Let me know what you think about the past 10 years. Are you happy with where the network has gone? Or do you have similar opinions as to mine that they went downhill? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.